Thank you very much, and thank you to the Heritage Council for inviting me here to my hometown. I'm going to give you a very visual set of examples of what it's like to be working with the arts. And I'm very glad that Mary was on just before me, because it means I can spend a little bit more time talking about some of the projects. But I want you to hear what Mary said about the visitor experience and about visitor-focused experiences, because the arts is no different to any other attraction, heritage or otherwise. So I just move on by going this way. Yes. So obviously tomorrow we'll be walking around the town and we'll be doing a workshop and we'll be talking about working with the arts, and very particularly you've got 3 amazing events that happen in Kells. Anyway, I don't need to tell you about them, but isn't it wonderful how they are all based on words and how they're all based on stories, and how you know, a perfect marriage it is, if you like, to the Ireland's ancient East. So we will be talking about this, and we'll be talking about artists' studios here in the town as well. So when you join me tomorrow, we'll be looking at Kells and putting it, if you like, on the catwalk, and looking at these festivals and thinking about them from a visitor's point of view, as well as looking at the celebration of these festivals and how they can grow and you know, plan for the future, but also the challenges and the solving our own problems. I'm wondering, what can I bring to this process? I'd say a lot of people don't know what this is about, but this is about stranger things and looking for inspiration from the other side. So I was wondering, what can I bring to this process? And one of the things I hope I can bring to the people that come on my workshop tomorrow is an understanding of what it is to be running a project. Many of you have been doing this for many, many years anyway. But it's really about managing people, managing time, managing money, managing the needs of the community, understanding artists and what they do, and most important of all, being really realistic about time. And it's really encouraging to hear Helen say earlier about a 5-year plan, and to hear Liam talk about working 5, 10, 20 years ahead. And I know I watched a video, there was some material sent to us about recent activities that happened in the town. And it was a wonderful interview with Mark Smith about planning for Type Trail in 2010, where you're already inviting people to get involved, particularly colleges and art students, to get involved in what might they be looking at in 2010. And this is a huge luxury, absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience in working with arts festivals and events, and working with, this is a real buzzword, cultural enterprises. And yes, all the time, and tomorrow we'll be looking at this as well. What is success? What does it look like? Certainly a nicer place to live and work and play, that it's safe, great buzz is created. I know when I visit the festivals in Kells, and I've visited the Old Hay, the new hinterland, really enjoyed the events. But probably one of the most exciting things I found about coming back to Kells and participating in these festivals is the extraordinary pride that the volunteers that I've met have. I mean, besides the quality of the speakers, the pride, the glue that sticks everybody together, if you like, is quite extraordinary, and really something to be congratulated. So let me see. Okay, so a little bit about, I work with the Kilkenny Arts Festival on a seasonal basis. So it's quite a large team of people that come together and make this thing happen. There's only a very small number of full-time staff members, and then there's a lot of seasonal people like myself who come in and we put our shoulder to the wheel. And thankfully it's, although I do a lot of voluntary work for various festivals, this is something that I do get paid for, thankfully. Many of you know it because it takes over the streets of Kilkenny. It gets a lot of press. You know, it's pretty extravagant. It's been going for 44 years. And things like the wonderful Canis's Cathedral have sell-out shows of music events and so on. And these would be the big pictures that you'd see in the Irish Times and so on. But this doesn't happen without extraordinary long-term friendships and involvements and partnerships from a huge number of sponsors, not just the national sponsors, but all the local hotels, all the local pubs. When Mary talked about a visitor experience, about getting people to stay longer, it's not just we go to an event and we go home. We go to an event, we meet our friends beforehand, we go for a drink afterwards, we can walk everywhere because parking is easy to get to, we might stay the night, but they're the things you've got to think about to keep people in your area for longer. And it's not by accident that Kilkenny has been going for 44 years, it's because this is so entrenched. Every bar, every restaurant, every shop, every hole in the wall believes in the festival, supports the festival, speaks highly of it and is proud of it. This is what my job actually looks like when I'm working on it, and it's basically a logistics job. I take a lot of the information from the programme and turn it into how to get people on stage at a particular time and to rehearsals at a particular time, and I work with a huge number of volunteers, but that's kind of my job. And it's jobs like this that actually keep the artists coming back again and again because they're well looked after, they feel safe, they feel looked after in the festival. And so you need the businesses behind it, you need the audiences to be happy, but you also need the artists to feel this is good for me, it's good for my CV to come to this place, it's good for me professionally to meet people in this milieu that is the Kilkenny Arts Festival. I'm going to talk, and you're probably wondering what this is all about. This is actually an artist's impression of what Talbot's Tower in Kilkenny, in medieval city of Kilkenny, looked like. That wee tower there, which is a very strategic point way back in medieval times, and this is what it would have looked like inside. But it was used during the Kilkenny Arts Festival, so it's not just about huge, big, venues on streets. This was probably the most sold-out show that we had during the festival. You had a one-on-one concert, a concert for one person, which lasted 5 minutes, and you had to book it in advance. So we had this guy, Liam Byrne, amazing performer, musician with the viola da gamba. He sat there in the tower, and you can see how tiny it is, with one person. And there you had this extraordinary and beautiful concert with just him. The tagline for the Kilkenny Arts Festival is Artistic Adventures in Ireland's Medieval City, but this was a truly remarkable and memorable one. And I'm going to take you through a few other kind of interesting events, because I know that not everybody here in this particular meeting may be familiar with, maybe going and trying new and different and contemporary festivals. In Kilkenny, there's also quite a number of beautiful green spaces tucked away. You wouldn't really know they were there, and every day during the festival at 3 o'clock and at 4 o'clock there's a concert on. But the secret is it's in a secret garden, so they tell you which garden it's going to be in, but they don't tell you what's going to happen there. So you turn up and you have no idea if you're going to see Fiona Shaw, the very well-known actress, do a performance, or if you have Martin Hayes just take out his fiddle and play the most extraordinary music. Again, just using spaces very, very cleverly. Also, very economically, using your artists who you've got to come over for the big spend shows, using them in another way and getting them out there meeting the public. I also want to talk about a group called Crash Ensemble. Amazing, small little ensemble of musicians. And this year they did an extraordinary tour of Ireland where they did 20 composers in 10 destinations. And you can see the composers are there and the destinations, but this is what their concerts looked like. I mean, they literally got on a boat and went off to Inishbofin on one of them. They in this one here where you see the poet, Maher Griffon, I think it is, she's reciting a poem outside Duckett's Grove in County Carlow. And this is a tagline from their press release. This is what they say: we came, we played, this is what we do. And just to think, orchestras don't have to play in huge concert halls, in extraordinary places that have wine bars and cloakrooms, but you can sit on your coat outside Duckett's Grove and bring your picnic with you. That leads me nicely into the Carlow Arts Festival. I'm living in County Carlow at the moment, and I've been involved on a voluntary basis on the board of the Carlow Arts Festival for a number of years, and was the chair for a couple of years. I just stepped down last year to the wonderful Emma Gagan. But this is the Carlow Arts Festival. And typically in the past we would have done or tried to do this kind of thing. The big fireworks display along the River Barrow. We have an extraordinary art centre in Carlow called The Visual, which is still relatively new. I think it's not just quite 10 years old. Built just before the Celtic Tiger kind of whimpered and died. It's an extraordinary place, absolutely amazing. And it's quite, these are some of the exhibits that take place there. So little old arts festivals going in there and going, jeepers, what are we going to do here? Can we afford to do anything here? It was quite a big ask of how do we make our festival relevant in this extraordinary place? I'm just showing you a couple of pictures from what's going on there. You can see that there's a cow and a calf that was brought in for one particular show. Really a fantastic space for making you rethink what contemporary art is and what a gallery experience is. They had a wonderful regeneration project in Carlow recently, and part of it was to actually build playgrounds in the gallery. So people came in and literally played in the space and then thought, what should spaces be doing for us? How do we use our spaces? How can we use them? Challenging in that way. Over the years in the Carlow Arts Festival, we found that we were doing a lot of stuff elsewhere, so we've centralised ourselves now, and we have most of our activities happening in this wonderful green space, which is beside St Patrick's College. We do a lot of more outdoor spaces, and we don't go so much for the big flashy fireworks. I'm showing you this slide because this is a very famous textile artist called Joanna Vasconcelos. She did this enormous piece in the gallery. But we also asked a number of local artists to respond to how to work in textiles. And so we had these amazing pieces made of leather and socks, believe it or not. And knit bombing, the local community groups did this yarn bombing, and literally overnight there was guerrilla warfare on lampposts and wheelbarrows and that was what. So again, taking what was in the big gallery and bringing it onto the street. Site works is another thing we do in the Carlow Arts Festival. And this is where we really look at something like a heritage site like this extraordinary Dolmen in Carlow. And we asked these artists, Campbell and Nina McGowan, they looked at it in terms of, they looked at it as a portal. It was a portal Dolmen, and they thought about it in terms of it being a supernatural space. So you can just about see here an organ. See that down here? Where you could go up and play do 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 do, and the lights came on and the music came on. It was a fantastic way of looking at our spaces, at our beautiful spaces, at our historical monuments in a different way. Again, outside Carlow Castle, this guy Steve Maher drove a tractor and attached it to a bagpipe and got everybody behind him as the tractor played the bagpipe. It was mad, it was smelly, it was noisy, and everybody laughed their heads off. But I don't think I'd ever been to Carlow Castle before. It was my first time there with this mad and wonderful thing. So asking artists to help you solve how you approach a space, how you enjoy a space in a different way. This is an opera that took place in a hair salon. Before I Die, it was just a board that people were to write whatever they wanted. I want to marry John Cena, whoever he was. I want to be a ninja. We also did Barges on the Barrow. We brought Arts Festival up the Barrow with this wonderful man, Little John Mee. And you can see what happened in the events was people had barbecues and picnics and came along. So our musicians arrived by barge, and you can see the River Barrow goes all the way from Loughlin Bridge, Bagenstown, Borris Bridge, all the way down, and it stopped at about 4 different venues along the way. I've loads more slides. This is where I happen to live very close to Borris in County Carlow at the moment. Very well known for the oddest of festivals I've ever come across, which is, we call it the Travellers' Fair, the Tinkers' Fair. No marketing, no unique selling point, no nothing. But what happens is the travellers arrive on the 14th, the fair goes up on the 15th, and everything's gone on the 16th. And it's really not just a horse trading and selling festival, it's also a bit of a marriage market. Absolutely bonkers. But in the same place, we have the Borris Festival of Writing and Ideas. And like yourselves here with Hinterland, the Carlow Arts Festival invited Hay to come in and run an event in Borris. Very different to you in that we had a campus. You walked in a gate, you had this extraordinary campus, you had this big house, ballroom, sheds, barns, and so on. And then the festival took place. It was very much a literary festival. And then over the years, Carlow Arts Festival changed it into something a little bit more. It's now actually something that the Carlow Arts Festival aren't connected with anymore. It's completely independent and floating alone and doing a fantastic job. But again, this is the same town, you know. Also, as part of the Carlow Arts Festival, we would spill over into the village and have events there. Time now? 2 minutes. I have 2 minutes. Solving problems. We had a big problem during the Borris Festival of Writing and Ideas in that we didn't have enough accommodation. The town couldn't cope with it. And people were saying, actually, maybe I won't get a ticket because I can't stay overnight. So we invited a number of architects and said, can you make a pop-up hotel? We'll give you 300 quid. Build it with pallets, build it with whatever. The Electric Picnic loved this idea, and they decided, okay, if you build it, we'll take it to the Electric Picnic. So we invited these architects all to build what we call pop-up hotels. The artists help you sometimes solve these extraordinary problems. I also, for people that are here tomorrow, worked with various other Crafts Council, the Arts Council over the years, and I've worked with the ARC, a children's centre in Temple Bar. And this is where I just want to bring up something. This is another interesting issue. The ARC did a project where they celebrated animals, but they connected with the Collins Barracks Museum, the National Museum in Collins Barracks. And one of the things we did to connect the two stories was to design a trail that would connect the two, and we actually got some very significant funding from Lewis to do it. Now, this is quite a few years ago during the Year of Craft. I got this idea because I used to sit in Jack's pub and do Kevin Seagrave's fantastic treasure hunt, which, if any of you have done it, it takes place just after Christmas. But as a result of doing it, I got all these jobs doing treasure hunts for different festivals, things for families to do. I also worked with the Three Sisters, which made a bid for the EU Capital of Culture, and at it discovered this extraordinary festival called Waterford Walls. So some of my people tomorrow, who's ever on our group, we'll talk a little bit about this. Derelict buildings were taken over by the most extraordinary graffiti artists, and here's some of the examples. This is by Joe Caslin, a fantastic artist. I'm going to finish with just this one here, and this is prompted a little bit by the article in the Meath Chronicle recently, and that is, you know, people think, oh, if only we had a big business come in, and wouldn't it be great if, you know, Google came to Kells or whatever. You know, people think that these big companies are going to solve it. Micro businesses, creative enterprises have fantastic clout. This is just a photograph of people that are associated with a group called the Fumbly Exchange. 4x12. There's 48 people connected with these studios in Dublin, Balbring, Waterford. Art is not just something that somebody puts on a palette and paints. It's not just the print works. It can be architects, translators, interior designers. There's a whole ton of people who are in the creative industries. And Nick, just to think about that. I'm mad jealous. I'm just going to flick through this. I'm mad jealous of you all that you in Kells have the Heritage Council come in to help you with this Kickstart project. It's a huge vote of confidence to you all. You totally deserve it. In all my years of coming back to Kells, it is a transformed place, particularly in the last sort of 8 to 10 years. And a big part of it is the awareness that people have and the pride they have in their heritage. This is my final slide, W.H. Auden, who said, "A poet's hope is to be like some valley cheese, local but prized elsewhere." And just be authentic. Be something that people are envious of, and you've got it all here. There we go. Thank you very much.